Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 4. This means there's only 2 episodes left to this series. My most recent ex, if you don't count whatever the hell happened with Flippy, the guy from AJ, and my worst ex ever. I'm pleased to say the series is almost over, and I can move on to telling more stories about my life or just making other random crap I think of. This relationship I'll be detailing is my second longest relationship I've ever had, longest being my current partner, and third longest will be the next episode after this one. While my relationship with my worst ex ever only lasted 6 months or so, about as long as I dated Rubik from the second episode, she was really abusive, so that video will probably be as long or longer than Rubik's episode. So what I'm saying is expect the last episodes of this saga to be pretty long, not short and sweet like Arthur and Florigato's episodes. I aim to wrap this series up by summer, which is pretty far away, but I want to move on with my life and do other content and tell other stories. Anyways, let's get into it. This guy will be called Pepe, like the frog meme, because of a certain bit in the story you'll hear about shortly. Once again, recap of what will be discussed is the timeline of events leading up to and of the relationship, how we broke up, if we stayed friends or not, and what I'd do if I saw them again in the present time. Without further ado, let's begin. I met Pepe in sophomore year in art class. Drawing 2 to be specific. We hadn't initially spoken, but after talking about Pokemon to a few of my buddies in this class, Pepe chimed in and said he was a Pokemon fan too, so we became friends after talking about Pokemon. For some more context, I had also met Rockstar, one of the people I mentioned in the Crushes and Flings video, which was essentially the pilot for this series. In this same drawing class, I had a crush on Rockstar first before falling for Pepe. At the beginning of sophomore year, I was dating Florigato from the previous episode, so both my crush on Rockstar and my eventual relationship with Pepe took place after he ended the relationship. The fling with Larry, another person mentioned in the Crushes and Flings video, took place between my crush on Rockstar and what happened with Pepe. Anyways, enough in betweening. My feelings for Pepe started completely randomly after a key event where I went to go speak to him and I saw he was crying. I gave him a hug and asked what was wrong, and he said his grades were bad that period and his mom would be very upset with him. I comforted him, hugged him again, and had to get back to my project. Shortly after that is when the feelings started to emerge. As for why he's called Pepe in this story, we had gotten our class pictures in, and he had told me his mom said to him that he, quote unquote, looked like a frog. Now, in real life, I used a different frog meme to refer to him by, but I won't use that nickname here to preserve anonymity. I didn't mean any harm by it, and I told him such, and the nickname I gave him ended up sticking. Soon, almost everyone in the drawing class was calling him this. He didn't mind, though, and I knew it was all in good fun. Eventually, as my feelings continued to grow for Pepe, I would hug him all the time, and he'd hug back. I'd also text him every day after school and dedicated quite a bit of time to chatting with him to get to know him better, as I made the mistake with Rubik of just jumping into a relationship with someone I barely knew, even if he was meant to be a scapegoat. I thought he liked me back, but I didn't have the courage to say anything to him about my feelings yet. It also didn't help that during this time we were in the middle of reading and watching The Great Gatsby, so that probably made me feel a bit more sentimental. Just a guess as to why my feelings caught on so fast. I decided one day after school when we met up that I would kiss him on the cheek and see what happens. I did it, and Pepe froze up. I quickly walked off before he could react. I thought what I did was cute and would be a dead giveaway of my feelings, but a buddy who I'll call Steven Spielberg said that was a horrible idea because it wasn't known that I was going to do that on his end. Keep Spielberg in your mind, he'll be important later in the story. I texted him that weekend apologizing for the sudden move I made, and he said it was okay and he didn't mind it. I texted something back like, "Oh, do you know why I did it?" He proceeded to ask if I had feelings for him, and initially I denied this and just typed in ... and we didn't talk the whole weekend. I chickened out. I come back to school, and things are normal again between us, and I end up kissing his cheek again. This is now the day before I confess my feelings. That night I had went with my dad and younger brother to a Big Lots to look at chairs, And at the same time, I was texting two friends, Sketch, who had mentioned in the video about Rubik, and someone else who we'll call James Charles. I was telling them how I really liked Pepe and I wasn't sure what I would do if he rejected me. I was panicking because I knew it was now or never, and I wanted to tell him I liked him before we went on holiday break. Sketch said to just go for it, and James was kind of just listening to my panicked rambles. The day comes, the day where I'm going to tell Pepe how I feel. I'm nervous as hell, and as we depart drawing class, which was the last class of the day, mind you, I pull him aside and say I have something important to tell him. I proceeded to confess, saying I really liked him and wanted to be with him, and that I was too nervous to say anything before, but it had to be done, or I wouldn't have gotten anywhere with this, so I was asking him out now. He pretty much said he'd be open to trying it, so I felt relieved and over the moon at the same time, but I will note he never confirmed nor denied he had feelings for me, so yeah. We actually ended up sharing our first kiss afterwards, and I left the premises feeling higher than a kite. This was officially my very first time asking someone out and it going well. I had asked out others before, like Springtrap, and hinted at Rockstar that I wanted to ask him out, but if you listened to that video, you'd know both of those did not work out for me. Our relationship went well for the first couple months, save for Valentine's Day, where he got me the one thing I didn't want if he was going to get me anything. For some context, I'm not a big fan of tacky teddy bears as gifts, and that's exactly what he got me, so yeah. And then comes March. There was this little dance that happened annually that anyone could attend for like $5 held at the school on a Friday night. I had asked Pepe to go with me a couple weeks prior, and he said yes. So I was all prepared to go to this dance with him that night, and my mom even helped me look as handsome as I could. But then Pepe texts me and says his mom isn't home yet. I offer to have my mom come pick him up, and he says his mom wouldn't be happy if he just left the house without her being there with him. I was confused and starting to get a bit irritated now, and so was my mom. I asked my mom if I could just go to the dance and wait for him there, and she initially said yes, but Pepe stopped responding, and 15 minutes later, when I did get a response, my mom changed her mind and said he should have made up his mind quicker. Crying now, I text Pepe that I was sorry for wasting his damn time, and he says no, he's sorry for wasting my time. We make up after that, but I don't ask him on any more dates. I leave it up to him to make dates after that fiasco. I will also mention some foreshadowing to the eventual end of our relationship. A lot of girls, and even some other guys, would literally be so flirtatious with him, and he'd do nothing about it except smile and laugh. Not awkwardly either, he enjoyed it. Eventually, I had enough and lashed out one day, and I swore that was going to be the end of our relationship, but it wasn't. Another little tidbit I'll bring up is that my rotten ex-girlfriend actually tried to get Pepe to break up with me by telling him some lies and trying to manipulate him. He told me, and I straight up had to tell him to stay as far away from her as possible, as she was nothing but a conniving little who wanted to ruin my life over me ending our relationship and friendship along with it. Our relationship is decent for the rest of the school year until he basically tells me there's a good chance he won't see me all summer. I say, then why don't we break up? And he looks like he's about to cry, so I quickly backtrack and say that I'll try and see if there's something we can do together. We indeed do not see each other at all that summer. There was one point around 4th of July where he invited me to go to this new movie theater together to watch the new Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, if I remember correctly. And initially I said yes, but then he said his mom was going with us. So I came up with some excuse of my dad taking me to Phantom Fireworks that day and said I probably couldn't make it after all. I don't know if this is normal, but to me, taking your mom on a date is not. That, for me, pretty much solidified the fact that Pepe was a diehard mama's boy, or the mom was a complete helicopter parent and couldn't leave him the hell alone, and most certainly couldn't do anything without her approval or her presence. So, yeah, we didn't see one another at all that summer. I remembered a few times venting to my older brother on Gmod about this, and he thought it was ridiculous that 3 months go by and we didn't see each other once. Come time to go back to school, he acts like nothing was wrong, and I played along because I didn't need to start the year with drama. October comes and I get my first job because my parents were tired of me not having one. They pushed me to get a job the second I turned 16 that spring, but I fought them on it, so they agreed to let me take my time getting one until school started. Then they went back to pushing me. There, I meet the person I'll be discussing in the next episode. Our connection was almost immediate, but I won't go into too much detail in this episode. My feelings for him were basically instant, and I knew at that point my relationship with Pepe was in deep jeopardy. Now that I had feelings for another person, I was fighting so hard to push them back, but to no avail. Around comes November, and that's when his birthday was, and I think I'd given him a Pokemon figure for his birthday. Shortly after, I confront him about the fact that he seemed to want to do nothing with his life but lie around and hang out with his mom. I proceeded to ask if he was going to get a job or a driver's license, and he said he had no plans to get a job and didn't even have his driver's permit. At that point, I said I couldn't date someone with no direction in their life, as it's clear he didn't even have a single inkling of such, and once again the waterworks start. I backpedal and take it back, but in reality, I wanted out of the relationship. My feelings for the other person never went away, so come January, I decided that if things weren't going back to normalcy by Valentine's Day, that was it. However, it would end a month before that. So, re enter Spielberg, who I told you to keep in mind. Spielberg knew about my relationship with Pepe and knew what he looked like, and one day he got on the bus and told me some troubling information. He said as he was walking down the hall to his next class earlier that day, he saw Pepe gathered around with four people, three girls and a single guy. The guy wasn't doing anything of note, but the girls had their hands all over him. One had her arms wrapped around him, and he was acting like everything was fine in the world and he wasn't hiding a secret harem from his completely unaware partner. Now, before you say, wait, what if Spielberg was lying? I can tell you for absolute certain he was not. Spielberg had a partner of his own at the time, and he saw me as an older sibling rather than a love interest, and he knew I wouldn't touch him in that way with a 20-foot pole. I immediately try to say, no, he probably saw someone different, and showed him a selfie I had taken with Pepe, and he was like, yeah, no, that's the guy I saw, I promise you. Now, I'm all for being polyamorous as I am myself, but at the time I was monogamous, and he was hiding this from me. After being dumped this information, I text Pepe that it's over, for good. He proceeds to text back why I was doing this, and I mentioned how Spielberg saw him with his little harem. To that, he asked me which friend said it, and I pretty much said, to hell like I'm gonna give you that information. And he said, well, your friend is lying. And I proceeded to ask why, and he said pretty much, if I wanted to break up, I'd tell you. And all I responded with was, okay. I wasn't sure after that if he did consider us broken up or in a fight, but the next day confirmed it when I went to our normal meetup spot, and he was running away right to his class instead. It was clear he was avoiding me like the plague. Later that day, I texted him that I was sorry I freaked out, but I'm not going to retract the breakup because he was dishonest with me and the relationship is still over. He said we could stay friends, but we didn't talk anymore after that point, and he actually became somewhat of an indirect bully to me. I'd see him with his little harem girls, and they'd all talk shit about me. Funny. He graduated a year before I did, so once he graduated, I never saw him again. I did learn from someone I worked with at my first job, who we'll call Bowie, that Pepe was probably autistic or needed special attention. Apparently, as Bowie went to middle school with Pepe, he didn't have any friends besides the teachers. His mom actually had to be at the school with him, and he would often throw tantrums and cry. Strange, but whatever. I'm autistic myself, so again, whatever. I guess maybe that's why he soaked in as much attention as he could get and had what was basically a harem, but that does not excuse his actions and his secrecy. What I learned from this relationship is that if you suspect something is going on behind the scenes, ask questions. Don't be too pushy, but ask questions instead of bottling it up and waiting for the bottle to break. My bottle broke when Spielberg told me what he saw, and it confirmed my suspicions all along. I also learned that I should end a relationship as soon as I realize completely that my feelings are no longer with the person I'm supposed to love. Being polyamorous, I can have feelings for multiple people, but in this scenario, that was not the case. My feelings had faded and I fell for someone else in the process. If I ever ran into Pepe in person, I don't know what reaction I would have, if I'm being honest. I don't know if I'd engage with him or just ignore him. Most likely, I'd go to the ignore route because that relationship did not end the best. Not to mention, someone who's got that many skeletons in their closet probably can't be trusted. I do hope, however, that he's found some direction and isn't just a freeloader like he pretty much said he was going to be during his senior year. So, that's the end of episode 4. Episode 5 may or may not be longer and will revolve around the person I mentioned before, the one I ended up having feelings for while still with Pepe. I don't know when I'll have that one out to you guys, but I'll aim to make it sooner rather than later. Have a happy new year, y'all. See you next time.